and welcome to Deals with Heels, where female entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Debra, and I'm your host. Welcome. So happy to be back in the studio for season 3. I am so excited to bring you all the great guests and all the great content that we have for this season. And this episode, however, is going to be a little bit bittersweet and emotional, as you may notice, I don't have Christina. Christina isn't with me this season, and it's a long story. Well, not too long, actually, but I definitely want to talk about that in this episode. We had a lot of things happening at the end of season 2, and it caused us to make changes. And since all of this podcast has been about women overcoming obstacles, learning how to pivot and go in a different direction and not be defeated and overcome, see obstacles as guides to keep us on the right path, I thought it would be a great episode to talk about everything that happened over the break, which unfortunately was a little bit longer than I had hoped it would be. But as you can imagine, it was a pretty crazy time. So around in October, Christina and I would meet regularly to talk about the podcast. And after we record several episodes in advance. And so after we're done recording, we don't meet as often, but we had a meeting. During this meeting, Christina told me that she's not able to move forward. She needed to take a step back. And, Christina and I are really close. So I had this weird feeling that something was going to happen. I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but I did have that feeling. And of course, it's super devastating. She and I talked about different options that we could do. And ultimately, what it came down to was she had big things happening in her personal life that were preventing her from committing the time. And there's a lot that goes into putting a podcast on that you guys don't see. It's not just coming in and kind of shooting the shit and getting it all going, because that part obviously is the good part. But there's a lot of planning and prepping and scheduling and content planning and nuts and bolts that happen. And Christina did not feel like she could commit the time to the podcast that it deserved. So we went through multiple options of what we could potentially do, and she decided just to back completely away. And when I tell you that there is not one cell in my body that ever considered I would be doing Deals with Heels without Christina, that's a fact. I never considered that I would be here sitting by myself without her sitting right next to me, talking with me and giving her insights on everything. But, the universe sends us on the path that we're supposed to take. And she was supposed to take that path. And the first question that most people ask is, oh, well, what happened? Did you guys get in a big fight? And I understand how that would be the obvious thing that would happen. But honestly, Christine and I are not in any disagreement at all. She is doing fantastic. She's living her best life and is moving forward with all of the things that she needs to do. That's part of her plan. And we didn't have a fight. We're not in a disagreement. And Christina and I have a very unique friendship. I've never had a friend quite like Christina. And when we have a disagreement, we remain calm and we talk it out and figure it out like it's supposed to be. I haven't had a friendship that was quite like that. I'm a Scorpio, and I admit I can be intense and I can have an initial reaction that is kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And I think part of my problem is that I say it out loud. If I had withheld and didn't speak, then I think it would go over better, because most of the time I come all the way around and do a 180 and understand, but it's part of my process. But Christina has made me understand that part of me that often is intense and not as likable as the rest of me is just as lovable as the rest of me. And it's a really important part of me. And being able to feel comfortable that if I do say something that is intense, then she's going to understand. And I always come back. I know once I've done it, and I always come back and apologize. But this really wasn't even that way. I just love her so much. And as you can imagine, it was devastating. And it took me some time to figure out what I was going to do. I thought it would be valuable to all of you if we talked about kind of the process I went through and how I ended up where I sit right now talking to you. Because most of the time when we have someone as a guest, they have already been through it. They've written a book about it. And don't get me wrong, that's fantastic because that's what we want to hear is the results. But we often don't get to hear it when it is raw and pretty fresh and the challenges that took place to get there. So I thought I would go through my process. And it is, of course, unique to me and my individual skills and talents. And it'll be different for somebody else if it were a podcast that they were working with. But I think we all go through similar things when we have big changes happen. And the first thing was a lot of uncertainty about how I'm going to do it. Am I going to be able to do all the work? Am I going to be able to pay somebody to do all of the work? Christina and I recorded in a studio with a producer. We hired a studio and they was super turnkey. We loved it. We walked in. I had the show prepared, gave it to them. We sat down, knocked out episodes, and Taylor edited. It was fantastic, honestly. And I would love to have been able to still do that. But as you can imagine, it was relatively expensive. And taking over as solo, I would have to cover all of those myself and all of the things, of course, trying to avoid scarcity mindset and worrying about that. But it was important for me to be able to figure all of that stuff out. So I think the first thing was I'm not ready, I'm not willing to let it go. I've worked really hard and I'm 58. I don't want to start anything over, especially something that I love and that I'm so passionate about. And Christina had been very generous in letting me continue if I want with Deals with Heels where female entrepreneurs thrive. And I knew the first thing that I knew was that I definitely want to continue. I don't want to let it go. I'm passionate about our purpose and our mission here. It took me a long time to find my own voice. I'm passionate about helping other women find their voice and about helping female entrepreneurs build their business, about bringing on guests that'll help them build their business. And that will help us learn how to not be burned out or learn how to self-care, manage our time, learn how to better do content SEO or some other complicated marketing stuff that we don't have enough knowledge about. We can always improve on. I'm so passionate about all of those things and empowering women. I absolutely knew within a very short amount of time that I definitely want to continue Deals with Heels. So then it became about how can I make that happen on my own? How can I keep Deals with Heels going and be able to one, afford it? We're a pretty new podcast and it takes about 100 episodes to really get where you can cash flow well. And we're not quite there. We're about halfway there. This is episode 50. It's pretty dang exciting. And I just couldn't stop. So we started looking at the nuts and bolts. How could I do it? I could go back in studio to get it to where it is the same expense that I've been paying my portion up to this point. I would have to make some considerable format changes in order to do that. And so there was an option. I hadn't thought about bringing it in-house in a long time. Christina and I had talked about that. And I make all my own creative ads, print ads, digital ads, content for social media. I'm capable of making all of those things and I do regularly. I didn't start really being able to do that until 2020. And I started painting in 2020. And I also started using some of Adobe's Express products that you don't have to be a graphic designer to be able to use. I've been in marketing a long time, so I know what I want ad and creative and signs and all of those things to look like. And now I don't have to explain that to an artist and have them try to build what my vision is. I've been doing it by myself for about 5 years now. It's very, very empowering. But editing video is definitely not something that I have done, nor that I have any education or training in doing. So that was a little daunting to think about too. And so something happened in the summer that helped me. And that was the Adobe Express products came out with video editing. And I can totally edit video in that platform. And it gave me confidence. I needed to have a new intro that I had to have new promotional photos. Think about everything that we have, all of our covers, all of our website photos, everything has Christina and I. So all of that had to be redone. And so we had to put some thought into that as well. I dabbled in a little bit of video editing. You may have seen, we did a live episode in September at the Ladies in Leather motorcycle parade and rally. And I edited a video about that when I got my first tattoo live on the air. And that was pretty good. I had a voiceover with it and I was able to do it all in Adobe. And so I thought I played around a little bit more and I decided I was going to try to edit my own intro. And I did. Be kind to everyone. Do not come at me. I think I did pretty well for being an amateur, but it is the intro that you see on video on YouTube or any of the podcast platforms that offer video. If you choose to watch it in that way, then you can see the intro that I made. So after I made that, I started feeling a little bit more confident of, hey, I think I might be able to do it myself. So that was on the table too. I thought about bringing in another host, but truly, Christina and I have a chemistry that just clicked immediately. And I don't have that with anyone else. And so that was an option for a while, but I took that off the table fairly quickly because I don't have anyone in my life that I really want to add in permanently to the show. So then there was a thought I could bring in multiple kind of guest hosts to be with me too. And that left the table pretty quickly also. Another thing that happened along that same time frame, pardon me, I had to take a drink. I'm not used to being the only one talking. And another thing that happened during that time frame is I started working on my sales training curriculum and getting it ready to produce this video. So that was, I put a studio in my house that I could record just that on. I didn't consider using it for the podcast because at the time I was putting it in, I still had Christina. And when there's two of you, there's 3 camera angles to edit already, right? So it's the Christina and I together and then 1 camera for each of us. And that is complicated editing that Miss Debra is not interested in doing, nor do I have the time to commit to doing it. So I needed to be able to it to be simpler than that. And once it became just me as host, then that became more of an option. And so this is where I'm sitting today, is in my home studio that I built and did myself. I'm really proud of it. And again, be nice. Don't come at me if you're watching me in video, because it's an amateur studio. I am not a videographer, nor do I have a professional studio. Did it myself, and I'm so proud of myself. This is what we talk about, ladies, when we say you can do anything if you put your mind to it and you believe. So I warmed up, you can see in the process, different levels as I was really kind of stuck in mud, honestly. Once I made the decision that I wanted to continue, I spent about a month just stuck. I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't make a decision to go in the studio. And I hadn't had the extra steps of understanding I can do it by myself yet. So I was still an indecision. And I've come to believe that those times when we feel like we're procrastinating or just being lazy. And lots of times I think people do walk away in that time. I've come to realize that even though I am still a little bit hard on myself and I have to talk myself out of that, those times are important times that the universe puts there for us because we have to wait. We have to wait for the right timing. We have to wait for it to be right. And so I had a month, maybe a little bit more than that I was just frankly stuck in mud. I was getting my day-to-day work done, but I felt like I was doing it in mud. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. You just feel like I can't move forward. I was moving forward, but I wasn't making decisions. I was doing things that helped. So working on the video, making the intro, working on my home studio and saying, hey, I might actually be able to make this work. And so those steps, I never just stopped working on it completely. And for a creative person, there's a lot of time that's spent thinking. I'm thinking about it. I know that if I spend time quietly alone thinking about it, that the right path will come. The way to do it will come to me. And I say that all the time. We did the 30-day challenge last season of spending 5 minutes alone. Those are the times when the answers really come. But it also took me building enough confidence to where I could make it happen. So here we are, season 3 in my house, my little home studio with the same stuff. So let's talk about the rest of season 3, shall we? I made it through explaining it wasn't easy. And I have to admit before we start talking about the excitement of the rest of season 3 that I spent a lot of time sad. I spent a lot of time crying and praying and meditating and trying to figure out. And there were definitely times that I wanted to call Christina and beg her to not give up. What if we waited 6 months? And I fought through it. I didn't do it. And part of the reason why I didn't is because of all of you and because of the show and because everything that I've learned from all of our guests in that God will test us. And they will throw us challenges to see if we're truly committed to our own goals. And Christina and I had already made the decision of what was best for her and her family. And then I had decided that it was what was best for me as well. It was my next step to move forward. And so, but knowing that didn't make it less painful. Doesn't make it less painful today to sit here with you without my friend. And she's not gone. She's thriving and doing fantastic. But I didn't want to pass by and not give you guys a real picture of how vulnerable I felt and how difficult it was for me to make the choice to move forward. But I did it, and I did it by myself. Truly, I did it by myself. And so I'm really proud of my accomplishment. I'm proud of my studio, and I truly did all the work myself. So that is something. And with that, let's talk about season 3 and all the great stuff that we have coming. I'm drying up all my tears. And I talked to Christina this morning. She gave me the best pep talk like she always does. And we will definitely be checking in with her throughout season 3. And she will be a guest later in the season. We have a lot of fantastic guests. They are accomplished entrepreneurs. Some of them have really struggled. They have overcome a lot of personal trauma to build big things. Some of them have scaled businesses. It's so inspiring. Some of them have their own podcast and have their own message that they want to get out. And they are all women with powerful stories and powerful business advice and tips that are that's actionable from everyone, not just women, men as well. I know we have a lot of male listeners, and I know you guys get a lot of good stuff. And part of the reason why is because women have a lot to offer, and we're grateful that you will tune in and learn. The getting all crybaby made me kind of lose my lips a little bit, I guess. We're grateful to our male listeners and viewers for tuning in. They learn a lot from all of our great advice from our guests. So I really look forward to season 3. We will have a lot of the same content. When Christina and I divvied up all of the tasks, one of the things that I did was the content planning. So you will not notice very big differences at all with the content because I'll still be planning it. And the show is the same. The purpose of the show is the same. We are here to help other women entrepreneurs find their voice and bring guests in that teach us and show us and share with us their success stories after their obstacles and struggles. And it's so inspiring. I'm very grateful to all of you for putting up with an episode of just my voice and for letting me get a little bit vulnerable. You guys know that's not always easy for me, but that is how much I love this podcast and how much I love all of you. And I'm thrilled to be able to move forward and to provide you guys with a ton of great info this season. So thank you so much for tuning in. Episode 50. Can you believe it? I can't believe we made it, but we did. And please like, share, tell your friends, and subscribe. You can download my free ebook. It'll be linked in show notes. 5 steps to a mindset for success. It's short, so it won't strain your brain to read it. And you'll also find links to our website and my business website, Hexagon Media, as well. So I guess that makes us come to the end. I have to make sure I'm not leaving something out. Until next time, we're out.